education. As we go forward, you know, we're going to give you tips and different ideas and things to think about in terms of each of these different categories. But we want to make sure that all of you are well aware that we will certainly be talking about these at PLS, but this is just added information to support the program overall. And let's go ahead and get started. Of course, what we always have to do is give you kind of a sense of how to navigate the webinar if you have any questions and things to do while we're going through all of the different slides. Many of you have already participated in many of our webinars and certainly through the last webinar, but it's important that we just go through these, and it'll be really quick. So to open and close your panel, if you have a larger panel open and you want to minimize it, all you need to do is just click on this little red or orange arrow right here. If you click it once, it'll minimize, click it again, and then it'll maximize. So if you have questions that you want to ask any of the speakers or on any of the topics, then this box right here is where you're going to go ahead and type that question. So if you write the question, we're assuming that you don't necessarily want to speak, and Mary Cruz will keep on top of those and find a time to open that up. But if you want to speak out loud to everybody, because right now everybody is muted, all you need to do is navigate to your little hand right over here, click on that, and then Mary Cruz, looking at all of these, she'll see who has their hands up. Then we'll unmute you and make sure that you can pose your question or comments to the panel as we go through this. So hopefully that's pretty clear. Again, you've done this before. And then we just need to talk about one other little thing with this webinar series that's different than many of the webinars that we've done. If you participated in the first webinar, you'll remember that we asked you to look for Little Ronnie. We want to make sure that, well, actually 100% would be great, but we want as many of our attendees to participate in these webinars, or if you haven't had a chance to participate in the webinar, to go back to the recording and go through the whole presentation. So to give you a little incentive, we have a prize for you, and to make sure that you've actually gone through the webinar, we have a Little Ronnie that you need to find on one of the slides. When you find that Little Ronnie, not during the presentation, but after the presentation and everything is over, we want you to send me an email, tina@smps.org, and let me know what slide you found Little Ronnie on. And Ronnie, if you don't know what the reference is to, is Ron Worth is our CEO, and we have a picture of him as a cute little boy somewhere in these slides. So and just one other thing, just to make sure, if you haven't already caught that, we will be recording this as we do all of our webinars, and it will be saved in the PLS 2013 community. We'll give you more information on that later. So we're going to go ahead and just quickly introduce the PLS Committee and Staff. I know many of you already know who we are, but it is important because many of them work so hard in putting this together. So our chair for PLS this year is Andrew Weinberg. Our incoming chair is Don Greco. Andrew and Don will be our presenters today, along with myself and Mary Cruz. And of course, our past chair is Nola Nasser-Gertner, and our board liaisons, President-elect, is Brad Thurman, and our chapter delegate is Holly Bolton. The staff, myself, Tina Myers, we have Mary Cruz with us today, and we have Dan Riley, who works with us on this program. So Andrew, I'm going to hand off the welcome to you.
Thank you, Tina, and I just want to say a quick hello to everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us for our second pre-PLS webinar. Did you know we are just 8 weeks away from PLS? I personally, I can't believe it. We've been working really hard for about a year now, and I can't believe it's almost here. So I have a question for you. Are you registered? I have this reminder for you. Send in your materials to Dan Riley. Book your hotel, book your travel, and last and most importantly, get psyched. It's coming fast. Stay tuned for more information that's coming your way. And with that, I'm going to turn it right back over to Tina.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. All right, so we're going to get right into membership, and I just want to remind all of you one more time, this is not an exhaustive presentation on all the things that we need to talk about. Membership is clearly a very important topic, and it's at the foundation of everything we do and all the things that we work on. But we're just going to highlight some key things for you to consider and to be aware of, and we will follow through with this conversation when all of you are at PLS. So just to kind of get started, I want to share with you some numbers. These are numbers that we work with at national or put together nationally every month. We have all kinds of numbers, all kinds of statistics. We have projections that we work with every single month to keep on target, but it's really important that we're sharing these numbers with you and you have a sense of what we're working with and certainly what our goals are. And we're going to be sharing a lot of those goals and projections with you at PLS. But for right now, let me give you a sense of where we stand. So as of the end of January 2013, we have 5,702 regular members. For our emeritus members, and if you don't know what that is, those are our retired members, we have 11. And for lifetime members, and sometimes we have complimentary members, we give away gift certificates, things like that, we have a total of 74. And we have 131 students for a total of 5,918 members. I will tell you that January has been a really great month for us. We've been slowly plugging along in the last couple of months, but we've seen a great increase in the month of January. February is still showing us really good numbers as well, and to be back close to 6,000 is really kind of refreshing, and we owe a lot of the credit to all of our chapters and all the work that you do. To give you a sense of the regular member counts in terms of past years, you'll see that right now the regular member, not including all those other emeritus and student members, we have 5,702. You can see it's just a little bit over where we were from 2011 and 12, a little bit over from 2010 and 11, and certainly even 2009 and 10. So this really just shows us there's, that steady kind of build, but we're not seeing a whole lot of change in the regular membership. So there's a lot of work that we need to do nationally. We have a lot of marketing that we are going to be rolling out, and all of you are going to see in the year ahead to really help you, but also to make sure that we're putting an emphasis where it needs to be nationally and supporting your efforts, and that you're not alone in this. But I also want to show you, and this is what's really important too, if you look at our retention numbers, from 2009-10, you can see we were at a low of 74%. That's very low, especially even for S&PS National, where our trends really should be or have typically been between 82 and 83%. 2009, 2010 was when we saw the drop as a result of the economic decline. Most people saw it in 2008. We saw it the year later, and that just makes sense because of the way our industry works. The marketing, the designs are out there, the building was out there, and so people had money for a given period of time in 2008, 2009, but they weren't getting new work in the year to follow. But what's really nice to see here is that now we're all the way back up to 84%. And it's important for you to know that we're 82 and 83%. 84% for an organization such as our societies compared to other sister organizations and other individual professional organizations, we are faring very well. Most of them you're going to find are around 76 and 77%, and they're still struggling building their retention. The only thing that we do need to pay attention to, even though this is something to celebrate, the retention is always based on the lower numbers from the previous year. So the more we can build our new members and really keep the members that we have, that 84% is going to be that much more meaningful, and we're going to see that much larger of an organization. It's also important for all of you to understand exactly what we do here at the National Office to support all of keeping our members, bringing in new members, and how we follow through before we even allow anyone to be dropped. We do a lot of work, and our team is incredibly busy here. So I'm not going to go all of this into detail, and this is all available to you in the Membership Management Manual, and I'm going to just kind of show you that really quickly. But these fulfillment efforts alone actually they're incredibly robust compared to what many other organizations do. But this alone can make a difference of up to 5% in membership growth and renewal or a drop. And so this is just something we will always do. We review it every single year to see what else do we need to do, what needs to be different, are we doing enough? Anything that we can do to make sure that we do not lose a member or that we're bringing in new members is what our job is ultimately all about. You can find all the details on the fulfillment effort and certainly so much more in terms of membership in the Chapter Management Manual, the membership section. If you do not know where this is, we're going to make sure that you have brand new printed ones when you come to PLS, but all of this is available in the Chapter Leaders Library. It's updated every year, and we're always looking to tweak it and give you more and greater information. And just one other quick thing about the Membership Management Manual. If you see my mouse right here, let me kind of highlight this right here. This is the index for all sections of our manual. And as a PDF, when you get the PDF, the electronic version, when you click on those samples or different ideas or forms, it'll bring you exactly to the document in the My SMPS Chapter Leaders Library. So this way we don't have to print them all for you. They're right there, and if we have to update any of those forms or add different items, then we don't have to give you a new piece of paper. You'll always have it brand new whenever you just click on that. So we hope that that's helpful to you. And let me see, let me go right back here. All right, a couple of things when we're talking about membership overall. We know that it is not always easy to sell membership when you're put on the spot and someone is saying, well, why do I even need to belong to the organization? And, I know all of you have been confronted by individuals and, maybe kind of awkward conversations where you're not exactly sure how to sell it. But there's just a couple of things that you need to pay attention to, and this doesn't have to be so difficult. The first thing, and the first question you have to ask yourself is, well, why are we here? Why does SMPS even exist? And when you really think about that, it's really simple. This is in our bylaws. This is in our articles of incorporation. We are here to advance the profession of professional services marketing and business development. That is it. It's really very simple. And everything we do when we are meeting with our board of directors, when we have staff meetings, and when we put together our strategic planning, these are the words that we have in mind, making sure that we are on target with what we need to do. In advancing the profession, even talking about the profession in terms of how we are advocating for marketing professional services and for business development in the role that you have in your team, all of that is going to make a difference to you in advancing the profession. I'm sorry, I really need to, there. A couple of other things that you just need to pay attention to when we're thinking about membership and why we're doing this. Every organization needs to make sure that they understand that growth is essential. It is critical. It is something you always must be doing. The reason why growth is so essential and that those numbers are so important, even though, of course, the new numbers, more members, the more members that we have greater budgets to work with, more things that we can do. But when you really think about this organization and the charge that we have, more people that we have as a part of this organization who are at all different levels, you're the contributors. They're the ones who are giving us the knowledge and wisdom, throughout the organization. When we have conferences and we have, build business and we have, local education, it's our members, it's the practitioners who are actually imparting the knowledge. When we can grow and we have that much more to pull from, well, then that's that much more knowledge gained and that much more wisdom to share. And that's very much a part of everything we need to consider and why we need to grow this organization. It is also incredibly important that you understand that growth, and even though every chapter is a little bit different, the growth of your chapter, the amount of members that you have ensures that your chapter is sustainable. You need to make sure that you have, people engaged, going to your educational programs. That's where you're making a lot of your money and able to do more things for your members and give them the experience that they need. But you're also going to need to be pulling from them for future leadership, which is incredibly important with all of this. And I think all of you can probably relate to that very well. So these are critical issues for you to think about when you're trying to build the membership and really understand why we're doing that. So Andrew, now I'm going to give this to you. What to do.
Okay, thanks, Tina. So here are some quick thoughts about recruiting new members. Of course, there's a whole bunch of ways to recruit new members, but these are some things that you should definitely keep in mind when you're talking to folks. First of all, tell your story. This is what makes it personal. This is what makes it real. It helps you build that connection with the person you're speaking with, and it also demonstrates your passion for the organization. And so telling your story brings it a long way. Number two, know who you're talking to. So we're all marketers. We all know how to put a spin on things depending on who we're talking to. So just keep in mind, if you're talking to a junior level person, somebody who's a beginner in the industry, you're going to want to talk about, how SMPS is going to bring them an opportunity to build their marketing skills. If you're talking to a senior level person, you're going to want to talk about management skills and the possibilities of helping them transition into more management and business development type roles. And if you're talking to a principal, let's say, you're going to talk to them about how SMPS brings you industry knowledge and also helps you bring those skills very much needed within your marketing department. Next, just ask. You'd be surprised. All you really need to do is essentially ask the person if they want to join. Sometimes it's that personal invitation, that personal touch that makes a difference. And this goes for recruiting new members as well as for recruiting volunteers. It's pretty much the same thing. And speaking of which, lastly, get them involved in some small way at first. And we talked a little bit more about this in detail in the last webinar, which if you weren't able to attend, please listen to the recording. But you definitely want to try to give them some small way of getting involved, and you want to try to match their interests. And I guess it's back to you, Tina.
Okay, and I'm sorry I'm having a little technical difficulty here. I need to pull up my panel, so if you give me just a second. I'm very sorry about that. Okay, promise I'll get back to that slide. Oh, good job, Andrew. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I'm sorry I had an issue with the dashboard that I was supposed to have on my screen. So anyway, going forward, when we're talking about the numbers, this is where the numbers can really help us understand the work that we have to do going ahead. And we pull these numbers all the time and are very close to them. But we have to understand that our greatest risk is our first-year member. And those are often referred to, those type of individuals, as the mailbox members. And not always just first-year members, but certainly people who have been with us for a little bit longer. But the reason why they're called the mailbox member is because these are the individuals who, maybe someone coerced them into becoming a member. Maybe they became a member and they just saw all these things are just going to be coming in the email or coming in the mail. They get a marketer, and that's pretty much it. That's the way they're engaged. But they're not really involved. This really isn't their membership. They haven't owned it. Those are the people that are really, that we have to find a way to reach out to in many different ways. And if we can even tackle the first-year member alone, we can make a huge dent in our retention levels and in our growth levels, and it will permeate through every one of our chapters. And there are lots of things that we can do to make that happen. So what you see in front of you right now are the number of drops based on how many years they've been a member within the last 2 years. The numbers that you have in front of you are the drops that we've had since March 1st, 2011 through February 26, 2013. If you look, the first year member, 36% of our total drops were individuals who only were with us 1 year. And what we do know about this, and what most associations and membership organizations understand these numbers are not, they're not new. Everyone grapples with this. But if we can just reach out to those individuals, make sure that they know that we know they're there, that they feel a part of the organization, you've given them a call, you've made sure that they've been introduced at different events whenever you find out, they're new, and we have lots of tools to make sure that that's readily available to you now. Those little things make a difference. But then even going further, how do we get them a little bit more engaged and ask maybe to volunteer or, finding them to even maybe write an article for an online e-newsletter that you might have. There are so many levels of engagement, but more than anything, they just need to be reached out to. And the more you reach out to them, the more and greater level of engagement that an individual has, especially in that first year, we are that much more likely to keep them and have them renew the second year. And if we can continue that trend in keeping them engaged and involved and feeling that they are really part of the society, it is more likely for them not only to renew another year, but to keep them as 5-year members and even up to 10 years. We're looking at these numbers all the time, and I would tell you, when I updated these numbers from last year's presentation, there was only maybe 1% off in each of these categories. This is it, and the thing is first-year member, it doesn't have to be hard. It can be very easy. We can work with you in helping with those efforts as well, and there are things that we need to do here nationally too. But this is the one group, if we pay attention to anyone, and I even have a breakdown of these, this is the group that you should be paying attention to. And just one other quick note, it's not in the slide, but from those 1,016 members, 26% of them are coordinators and 15.4% of them are business developers. So it kind of gives us a little bit more information to work with and maybe ways that we can engage them, find ways that we can engage them that are meaningful to them. So, Mary, I think I'm going to ask you to talk about the engagement opportunities.
Sure, absolutely. Obviously, ways that we can engage new members when they first join is obviously reaching out to them and welcoming them. And we know, as Tina's mentioned before, that engaging them and asking them to volunteer, attend meetings, speaking, writing, social media, mentoring. You never know what special talent that your new members may have. Doing a volunteer interest survey, and we've done that for many chapters. We have samples of those surveys in our survey account that I can certainly pass on to you, but it gauges what of your membership, who's interested in volunteering, about how many hours they could allow or afford a month, and even if it's 1 hour a month working registration, getting them to do that 1 hour and then being able to engage and have a nice conversation with them. Hopefully they'll want to come back, and hopefully they may want to get more involved and join a membership committee or something similar. So it's just that volunteering. We know that once a member is engaged at some level, that they will be more likely to renew their membership. Attending meetings, making sure, obviously, that members, if you notice that there's a group of members that don't typically come to meetings, why is that? What are they missing? And maybe doing a call campaign out to those members or a quick survey just to those members, segmenting them. And then finding out who's interested in speaking and writing. Again, a lot of your membership, like Tina says, has specific experts and skills that they can utilize. Maybe they just want to write a quick little article in your newspaper, newsletter each month or whatever that may be. Social media, someone may be not willing yet to be on the board or be on a committee, but they love social media, and how can they get engaged? And of course, mentoring. Really, a lot of the chapters do this very well. They pair up more senior members with new members and board members with such, but really working with those members and finding out what their specialties are and their skills, and trying to help them in their career and also in volunteering and leadership.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, creating a membership committee. Andrew?
Yes, so, okay, as of the beginning of this year, in September, as Director of Membership for the New York chapter, one of my first tasks was to create a brand new membership committee from scratch. And so, and there's a few reasons behind that, but we did need to create a new committee. And so I took a few things into account, and I just want to go over some of that. First thing, diversity. It's important for a membership committee virtually all committees actually, but particularly for membership committees, to have a diverse group of folks that are working on your membership initiatives. So I took into account the level of experience. You want to have folks who are more junior and some folks who are more senior. I took into account the number of years of membership as an SNPS member. So people in their first year or for 1 to 3 years, and then folks who have been around for 8 or 10 years. You want to have both representing both on the committee. And then finally, geographically, if your chapter reaches out to a fairly wide area, you definitely want to try to mix it up and try to get some folks representing different areas as well. Now, with regards to leadership, you want to have a succession plan, and this is a dual benefit. It's a benefit to the chapter for obvious reasons. You're going to have continuity, and you're going to have folks who have stepped up and could potentially take on director roles. But the other effect, the other benefit, is on behalf of the member. It's giving them an opportunity to learn leadership skills and to practice them within a relatively safe and friendly environment of SNPS. And so what we've done is we've appointed 2 chairs to serve as kind of like a second tier of leadership. And so they both help me with our initiatives, and they help me oversee the committee's activities and follow up and stuff like that. With regards to responsibilities, can't say this enough. Delegate, delegate, delegate. You can't do it all as the leader of your committee. So make sure you delegate. Again, just ask. It comes up here too. People will volunteer and will take on tasks or projects if they're just asked, and they also enjoy having that ownership of a project and seeing those accomplishments take place. Finally, with regards to initiatives, what we did is we sat down at the beginning of the year as a group and we just brainstormed, and we came up with a long wish list of things that we wanted to do, and of course realizing that you can't get to everything in 1 year, or if you take on larger projects, you're not going to get through all of them in 1 year. So as my friend Jason Vesuvio, who's our current president, says, we phase things in. This is one of his mottos for this year. So we can start a lot of different initiatives, but we don't have to complete them. We can phase them in. We can do small parts of it and just get it going, and then maybe they'll get finished next year, or maybe it's a 5-year plan. And the last thing with initiatives is make sure they correlate with your chapter strategic plan and goals. Very important. And so speaking of initiatives, you can go to the next slide. I'll give you a couple of examples of things that we're doing in New York. First of all, at our events, we have a membership table, and this has been really effective. And we plan in advance so that we make sure that the table is manned by a couple of folks from the committee. We're going to have some of our local literature about our events and about our activities, and we're going to have literature from National as well. There's tons of great pieces that National has. And one of the things that we do when we talk to people at that table is we actually collect their cards, and we have a drawing. So we'll give away a free program, or we'll give away a book or something like that. Related to this, we also have membership ambassadors. And so for those folks who are on my committee who are not manning that table, I'm going to have them, if they can make it to the event, I'm going to have them work the crowd. They're going to be there. Yeah, the crowd is networking, but work into the conversation talking about SNPS. If they're not a member, talk to them about all the great reasons for membership. If they are a member, are they involved? Think about ways to try to match their interests with opportunities to get involved on committees. So these membership ambassadors have been really effective in finding new members and new volunteers. Next, Member of the Month. This is something that we started this year. It's a great way to recognize people, and recognition goes a long way, as you all well know. We do lots of PR and lots of social media around the Member of the Month, so there's definitely a lot of awareness, and they really appreciate it. We also send a letter to their supervisors, so that's a great way of being recognized both within the SMPS world and also within their firm. Protocols refers to if an event takes place, how do we as a chapter react to it? And so we have a few different things that we've created protocols for. If you have a new member, what are the different things that are going to happen? Are you going to send them something? Are you going to call them? Are you going to match them up with a buddy? So we have a list of things, a list of protocols that we have for a new member. Same thing with a new job. If somebody takes on a new job or is promoted at their firm, what are some of the things that we'll do as a chapter to recognize that? Another one we also recognize is when somebody passes the CPSM exam. So different things, different events, different events that happen in someone's professional life. How can we make the most of that as a chapter? And then lastly, this last bullet, this four-pronged priority approach. This is something that we put together as a committee at the beginning of the year. Where do we want to focus our efforts? And so our four-pronged approach includes, number one, recruiting new members, number two, member retention, number three, special attention to senior members, and number four, special attention to those 1 to 3 year members and getting them engaged, those mailbox members, as Tina mentioned. And so those are just a few ideas of what we're doing in New York, just a taste of that. And so with that, if you can go to the next slide. I'm going to introduce Dawn Greco. Dawn is our PLS Incoming Chair. She's also Regional Marketing Director of ICF International. Dawn and Mary and Tina are going to talk to you guys about education. So Dawn, take it away.
Thanks, Andrew. I just want to say how excited I am to be coming on board as the incoming chair for PLS, and I really look forward to meeting each of you in 8 short weeks. And I did what Andrew suggested, and I wrote myself a task to book my PLS travel. So thank you for the reminder. And with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Mary to talk about the education program.
Thank you, Dawn.
Mary, can I interrupt for just a moment?
Of course you can.
I just want to make sure, are there any questions or any hands raised? We've been talking about a few things, and I just want to make sure that we've covered that.
Not at this time. I had one question that I answered, not related, but it's no hands raised and questions yet, so we must be covering things pretty well right now.
All right, sounds great. You can get started. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And again, just a quick overview of the, these PLS webinars are in place prior to PLS, obviously, is to get you thinking earlier on about your committees and what you should be forming and goals maybe you should be looking toward and resources that are out there that might help you during this planning process and during this time before you get to PLS to really look hard at what goals you want to achieve, and obviously you might also be thinking about strategic planning sessions, and but incorporating all of that is membership and programs. And so these are just highlights and things, again, that, as Tina said, we're going to reiterate at PLS. We're going to get deep into that, into the resources and details, and also, again, making sure each of you really, like Tina mentioned, look at the chapter manual, the different sections, and just breeze through them and see what's there and use some of that information in your planning. So one of the resources here is the chapter education report. This came out about a couple months ago. We sent a message out to the leaders and put it into the My SMPS group, and it is a compilation of all of the chapters of what they did last year, all the programs that were had from September 1, 2011 through August of 2012, so last year. And there's so much great information in here, different programs, the speakers, what their ratings were, the evaluations, and some additional information. So we get this information from the chapters and we compile it into this report. So this is definitely something, if you haven't looked at and you want to get your hands on, it's on the national website as well as the chapter leaders community of My SMPS, or you can just email me directly, mary@smps.org, and I'll send it to you. In the beginning of this report, you're going to see all I'm doing here is giving you a quick glance at some of the programs, some of the numbers from last year. The chapters obviously have been very busy and doing a lot of programs and events, and this the education department here takes all of this information and comes up with this summary. So chapter by the numbers, September 1 through 11/31, the chapters offered 927 programs, and you can see the breakdown here. 45% were lectures, 21 special events, seminars, and workshops were 19. And we had 33,434 people attend chapter programs this year, which is wonderful. But the number here that stands out to me is that 38% of those attendees were non-members. So that is a large focus group there that we really need to focus on recruiting as members. And you know, nationally we're looking at these numbers, and we're trying to get that information from the chapter so we can also reach out to that nearly 40% that attended these meetings are non-members. So that's a very important group to focus on as well. And then you can see obviously the average event size by event type, and what are some of the more popular types of programs. And then lastly, this is, again, some good information on your pricing of your programs. Last year, the average registration rate for members and non-members. The average rate for members was $41 and non-members was $59. The differential between these two is very important, and we really need to pay attention to that, making sure that we're pricing these programs properly, and that also that you're not undervaluing your programs. And I think sometimes it's hard to do that, you know, to think about, oh, should we increase it, should we not? But the chapters have wonderful programs, and the value is there. The average member rate increased by only $1, and the average non-member rate dropped by 15% from 2011 to 12. And then S&PS members received an average of a 30% discount. So this is, again, some great numbers to just think about and digest.
Mary, can I just add one thing here, too?
Sure.
And we'll talk about this at PLS, but it is important to reiterate the importance of that member, non-member differential. You know, a part of making that significant, but not so the non-members can't attend or they think it's a ridiculously overpriced program. But number one, the member themselves will see the value in the program and what they get in terms of a great discount to go to the amazing programs that you put on. But the reality is, too, even if you have, say, you have a program that's $25 for a member, and you decide for non-members it's going to be double. You're going to increase it by that much, and it's going to be $50. $50 for a program at the level that our local chapters are able to do it is not a big risk. And one of the things I think that many chapters don't understand, and associations overall, the programs that you offer often cannot be found anywhere else, not the way you can do it, not by the people who can deliver the education and the information. So it can be hard because obviously these are the programs you make your money, how you make your money, but the reality is it can be a great differentiator and value statement for the member, but you're still going to have those non-members attend because they're still amazing programs at an amazingly discounted price where they wouldn't be able to get it otherwise. So that's my little spiel, and I'll go on to the next slide.
Thanks, Tina.
Sure.
Okay. Again, as Tina showed you, the membership section, this is the chapter and education section of the chapter manual. Again, these are broken out into nice, clean, simple sections so that you can quickly look at this information and dive right into it. Some of the things that are found in here are, you know, more logistical type information, assembling your committee, developing an education plan, programs plan, inviting speakers, logistics, selecting dates and locations, developing a budget, finalizing event logistics, conducting a seminar. So all of these things are a lot of good information in here, and there's links to, as Tina mentioned, under the table of contents in this electronic document, links to a planning checklist, to a planning budget, speaker agreements, education report, the domains of practice, CEU documentation. So I'm not trying to go through it all, but I just want to give you a quick glimpse into how much information is in this document here, and for you to pass it on to your programs committee if you haven't already. And as she said, we will be updating this again this year for you, and you'll receive the updated version at PLS. So with that, this is Dawn's going to take it from here, but just want you to start thinking about your program's chair, who that person is or will be, who you're looking to recruit, and how to assemble your team. So Dawn, can you take it from here?
Sure, thank you. So as Mary just said, thinking about who the appropriate chairperson is a great way to begin your thinking about your committees for next year. If you have not been to your education committee, to a subcommittee meeting, that would be a good way to attend one of those to really see how they're functioning. And really, you're in a position to actually, in most cases, to hand select that chairperson. So really give that some careful consideration and some thought. Because this is, that person's going to be representative of you and your term as president. The other thing I would say is there's no one size fits all. So I know in some chapters there are education committees, and others there are education and workshop committees. Some have a programs committee, some have professional development committees, some have a mix of all of the above. So just thinking, as we're talking today about education programs, we're kind of talking about all of those above. And again, there's just not one size fits all. So there are different things that work for your chapter. Be open to that and consider if those are working most effectively, or would it be more effective if you split something out. Additionally, think about the specific committee roles. It's oftentimes when you're asking somebody to chair a committee, it seems a little overwhelming to that person. As long as you can break the committee participation down into very specific bite-sized roles, you'll see that people are much more willing to step up, and you're also then able to foster future leaders. So having a director on your education committee, possibly somebody who deals with finance, maybe somebody else who's logistics or registration, somebody who deals with the PR and promotion, maybe somebody else who interacts with the speakers and maintains a speakers bureau or a speakers list. Being able, again, breaking those down into bite-sized pieces enables more people to participate, and also makes it something that people feel that they have greater ability to buy in to do, because they already have a full-time job. Now that gives them a way to specifically get it, to get involved in the local committee. The other thing is, you recruit volunteers for your education committee. Be very specific about what you want them to do. When you approach an individual, it's much harder to say no to you personally than it is if you stand up in front of a program meeting and say, hey, we're looking for volunteers for all of our committees. It's a nice plea to put out there, but if you're able to approach individuals one-on-one and then be very specific to say, hey, I think this would be a great fit for you. I think our education committee would be a great fit, especially given your interest in public relations, and we have a really big need there to get somebody who's involved, interested in public relations on our education committee. So the more specific you can be, the more luck and the better apt you'll be to grow bigger committees. Can you use the next slide?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. When it comes to planning for your education team, really you want to encourage your education committee to align the programs with the chapter's strategic goals. So for example, if one of the chapter's strategic goals is to increase networking among participants, you really want your programs committee to be thinking about how can they also embody that? How can they build 5 or 10 minutes of networking into their program? Also, they have them think about the chapter demographics, and we saw some information earlier that National can provide and does provide, I think, each month about the demographics of your chapter, so you really know what does what's the makeup of your chapter mix. If you have a very experienced chapter, then their needs may be different in terms of programming than if you have a chapter that's got a higher number of newer members. Or maybe you've got a mix. You want to be sure that you're varying your education programs to really meet all of your chapter members' needs. Also, meet with key individuals. That's true for both you as the president-elect and also for the committee, so that they are touching one-on-one, whether that be meeting internally with other SMPS committee members so that they're coordinating registration and logistics and public relations and outreach, as well as meeting with the speakers who may be presenting and really giving them a very solid grasp of the type of information you're looking to be presented, ensuring they have a good understanding of who the audience is and what the audience's sophistication is as well. Then really do use those surveys and evaluation forms. I think every chapter does this as a matter of standard procedures, that we survey at the end of our programs and really ask for input. But the question I would pose to you is, what happens with that survey information then? What are we doing with that? Really consider how can we make those more effective as we plan forward for additional programs. Also, monitoring industry trends. I think most chapters tend to do their programming, we can plan a year in advance so that we can begin setting everything up. I would suggest that you consider making some of those program topics very generic so that you can be responsive to industry trends. So if you're talking about water, your topic could simply be water. And then as you get closer, if there's something that's happening and you're dealing with flooding impacts, you're dealing with sea level rise, or whatever may be happening in your local geography, if there's something that's really hot, as that comes around, it allows you then to tailor it down a little more specific. We really want to be sure that we're giving everybody that kind of cutting-edge knowledge that they really have come to know SMPS for. And lastly, I would suggest developing an action plan for your education team and your education committee, something that's actually in writing that they can refer back to so they know what some of their goals are and how it aligns to the chapter's strategic goals. And that action plan really should have both what is the action, who's responsible for it, and what's the time frame that it can be done with. And that should ideally be something that's repeatable again and again for each of your programs so that it begins to establish that framework to make pulling off a program a fairly simple and straightforward process everybody has a great comfort level in. And I know that there are a number of samples that have come from different chapters. And Mary, if they have questions for those, can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Mary at smps.org. Again, developing these plans, we can send you samples and models. A lot of the chapters have done great things, and we've been refining this as we're working on the strategic planning toolkit. So we'll have more resources, but that action plan can be in a simple Excel spreadsheet, as Dawn mentioned, with the action, who's responsible, and what's the time frame for it. And we know some of these programs, are put together so quickly, and there may not be time to capture that. But looking, for future goals, what you want your programs to become, and where you're headed with them, it's very important that you have this document in front of you at all of your committee meetings, like Dawn said. So I'm happy to send samples. Just reach out, and they're also in the chapter leaders library of my SMPS as well.
Great.
Perfect.
Thanks, Mary. I'm going to turn it back over to you then.
Well, thank you, Dawn. That's great. This is some great information, and this is something, along the same lines. We're just, Tina and I will talk to this, but this is something that is very important at every chapter, that before your programs, before your breakfast meetings, your lunches, your bigger events, that you remember these 6 things that you're doing before each of those events. I mean, we know that you always welcome the speakers, and you don't want to take up too much time because you really just want to get down to business with the speaker. But giving thanks, of course, to sponsors and volunteers and speakers, and making sure that you're thinking about membership at all of these events, and that you're mentioning it in one way or another. And these 6 points are good to always to be referencing, highlighting a member resource and a benefit before a program begins. And it could just be one small thing, something that your chapter provides, or it could be, did you know about the blueprints document guidebook that's available from SMPS National that can help you develop your business development department or your marketing department. And I can't tell you how often I send that out, and members aren't aware that it's there. So highlighting a resource, highlighting benefits, and giving a short commercial about SMPS, and that can be in the form of talking about a benefit or two. And I don't mean get up in front of everybody and rattle off, here's our features, here's our benefits. Just picking one thing at each one, and making sure you may have a PowerPoint running in the background. You might have something that's there before the program begins that kind of, I know several chapters do that, where it's a rolling information on some benefits and upcoming events, and also possibly inviting a member testimonial, having someone come up before an event, just 1 minute, to speak about why they are a member, why did they come back, or how has SNPS shaped them in their career in their firm, what has it done for them. And then we hear time and time again, those member testimonials in front of a group like that can be so powerful and hit home for someone. And then you don't know. From there, some of those non-members, some of that 40% of non-members that are attending these programs may decide to join. And also, of course, always recognizing new members or other VIPs that have helped with the program, and your new members making sure that early on, after they've joined, that you at least say, and again, several chapters do this, can you please stand up and recognize 3 of our new members and mention their name and firm, and it really goes a long way. And then lastly, introduce a point person. I mean, we know your membership chair, obviously is the point person, but every board member is selling membership and helping and talking to members about, joining. But if they can put a name with a face and say, hi, Jane Doe, please stand up. This is our membership chair, and she just wants to, make sure if anyone has any questions about membership that you recognize her. So those things, I feel can probably get done in about a 5-minute time frame, maybe a little longer, prior to every event that you have. Tina, did you want to add to this?
No, but I actually am going to ask Andrew. Andrew, you talked about before to us what New York does, and you have kind of that running PowerPoint in the background. Would you mind just kind of explaining what New York does?
Sure. So when we have our breakfast program events, these are the client panel program events, we have the networking, which occurs the first half hour. There's registration, breakfast, and networking, and that occurs outside the auditorium. And so when we start flashing the lights and ringing the bells and getting everybody into the auditorium, which can take 10 or 15 minutes by the time everybody gets in there, we have this ongoing PowerPoint that's looping. And basically it includes a bunch of information. It includes the name of this event. It includes this event's sponsors, our corporate sponsors for the year, any upcoming events, basically any information that we want to share with this larger audience. These breakfast programs that are client-based tend to be larger audiences than the educational panels, although you're going to have this opportunity at both types of events. But anything that you want to get across, if you want to highlight your member of the month, or any pertinent chapter information can be part of this schooling PowerPoint.
Great. Well, thank you. And just one thing to highlight too, and as Mary said, this doesn't have to take in total the things that we're asking and suggesting that you do, more than 4 minutes out of or 5 minutes out of your program. But what's important to remember, especially about those talking about your member resources, what's going on in your chapter, what's going on nationally, is that often you have a sense of who's going to be at your program, or you think that they know SNPS, and maybe you don't need to do these things. But you never know who is going to be there, who that prospect is going to be, what they may or may not know about SNPS. Someone might have said, hey, just go, you'll learn about it, and then maybe you just didn't think about like, oh, well, everyone knows SNPS, and it's going to be fine. Often that is just not the case. And anything we can do to make sure that we're giving consistent messaging about what's going on and the variety of things that you're offering locally and what we have nationally. And if you need help with that, we will gladly help you with that. But it is very much an important part of making sure that these messages are being delivered, and what better opportunity than your programs and different events that you offer. So enough said on that. I think at this point, Mary, I'm going to ask you, are there any other questions out there?
There has not been. It's been quiet. There was one question from someone about had the membership chairs and program chairs specifically received the sections from the manuals and so I just wrote back, and that'll be in the report, that we did, this manual was made available to the presidents when they came to PLS, and then we send them out following PLS. Once the new year kicks off, we'll send the different sections to the chairs that we've been, the information we've been given by the president. We receive all the boards and who those people are each year at the beginning of every year, usually in the summertime. and we get that into our database. So then at the beginning of the year when it kicks off, we'll send a little message to membership chairs, let them know about the resources, and here's the section of the manual. And we do the same for programs chairs and so on and so forth. And then, of course, like we said, this is saved in the chapter leader's library. But if you haven't seen these sections, what I'll do is following this webinar, we will send you a link to the recording, because we are recording this, so that you can share it with other board members, or if you need to listen to it again, you can do so. And then also we'll include a link to the PowerPoint and a link to these resources that I'm talking about, the manual sections as well as the chapter education report.
Sure.
So we'll make that available following this call. But other than that question, there's no hand raised and there's no questions right now.
Okay, and just on the chapter manuals, if at any time you want them to be printed and you just want certain sections, just give us a call or send Mary or I an email, and we're happy to have them printed up for you and just mail them to you or whatever team member that you'd like. There's so many, we don't print that many. We normally just make them available at PLS for the presidents, but we're always happy to just mail whatever it is that you want. And that said, there are a few more things to remember. Of course, you have to remember PLS is April 25th to the 27th. Be the third person to remind you to register. Dan Riley is the one who's taking care of the registrations. There are some other things that you need to remember. You need to give him your yearbook photo. And then, of course, there's a questionnaire on for a yearbook that we put together for all of you who will get it before you actually get to PLS. So you get a sense of who's who, and you know one another a little bit more before you actually get to PLS. So we're working on that. You need to remember to get Dan Riley that information. We have one final webinar in the series, and that's on finance and how to make the most of PLS. Our finance webinar is going to be headed up by our new controller, and his name is Antonio Payne, and he's a CPA. He's going to be a great addition to this organization, and will be able to help all of you out. And if you're familiar with Earl Klinger in the past, he's going to be able to kind of take that role on and really work with all of our chapter leaders and all of you. The webinar recordings will be saved in the PLS 2013 community, as we said earlier. And I hope it was a little obvious, but hopefully you found where little Ronnie was. So let us know what slide little Ronnie was on, and we'll put that and mark it on our sheet. And then if you get all 3 webinars and you know where little Ronnie is, we're going to send you just a little gift from SMPS, which I think you'll really like. So that's the conclusion of our webinar, and we want to thank all of you so much for being a part of this. We cannot wait to see you in April. You're going to have a great time at PLS. And thanks to all of our presenters.
Thank you, Tina.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Look forward to seeing everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a great day.